Yo, what's up everybody? It's Manga Mike here. I'm back with a video finally. I'm really sorry that I missed videos for a whole month and didn't really give you any update on that. If I had the 1,000 subs, I would have quickly shot out a community post, but unfortunately I'm not quite there yet. I'm getting there. So the reason why is because I was actually creating the project that I'm going to be talking about today, which was I finished a 32-page manga in about 30 days. So I'm going to be talking in this video about some of the critiques I have of myself going into the project and during the project, and what I'm going to be doing in order to improve my next comic, or my next manga I should say. So before I really get into a in-depth critique of this manga, I did want to point out one thing. Even though I'm going to be really harshly critiquing myself, I do want you to understand that I actually really do love this comic. I enjoyed making it. I think that it's a decent enough story that once I get feedback from the professionals that I sent it to, I'll probably kind of put in that feedback and some of the things that I think personally would have made it better, and I'm probably going to try to sell it. So that's how confident I am in this particular story. So don't think I'm just hating myself or anything like that. This is for educational purposes, and this is what you also need to do in order to edge towards being a professional, right? You have to finish a work and then you have to critique it and get better. So let's get started. So point number one. We are more capable than we could ever imagine. So this is probably one of the most important takeaways that I had from this particular experience. When you kind of look at the schedule of a mangaka, you are like, what in the world? Because they're doing so much. They're completing pages upon pages within a couple of day period, right? They do the thumbnails, sometimes they even do some of the writing if they haven't gone that far, but they do all of that stuff for an entire chapter within a 30-day period, and sometimes those chapters range from 20 pages up to 50 or 60 pages, so it's incredibly impressive. And that's one thing I really learned about myself, was that while I'm nowhere near the level that they are as far as the amount of detail and stuff that they put into their panels, I am capable of pushing out that amount of work within a specific time period given the skills that I have. So if I can get my skill level up to their skill level, I know that I have the drive to get there, right? And you do too, right? I think that sometimes we see these things and we're like, oh, there's just no way that we're going to be able to do it. And that's not the case, right? I not only did that schedule, but I did it to the best of my ability while holding a full-time job. So with that being said, you could feasibly do the same thing. If you're currently working another job or something like that, put in some more effort wherever you can into perfecting your craft, because once you break into that professional sphere, whether that, it doesn't even have to be comics, maybe you go into game development or something like that and you're a concept artist for games, that will still help you create comics later on down the road, because you're going to be consistently working on your artwork. People out there that are going towards professionalism, or that are professionals, they get to work on their art 6 to 8 hours per day. We don't get that luxury because we're working another job, so you have to kind of allocate your resources the way that you can, learn the most that you can, and hopefully get to that professional level so you can practice that much. Alright, point number 2. So the next point is that I still lack fundamentals a little bit, and this was kind of frustrating for me to figure out, but this is how I knew. So I would go on some days and I would be able to bang out the whole entire page, and each panel was only taking me 30, 20 minutes, whatever, and I was just kind of zooming through, right? And then some days I would spend 2 hours drawing the same face over and over and over again, trying to make it look at least somewhat consistent with the faces that I had throughout the series. And the reason for that was because I severely still lack fundamentals, and it's so frustrating to say that out loud, but it's just the truth, right? And in particular, I lack the fundamentals of perspective, form in perspective, and then also coloring and shading and lighting. And the reason why I know that those are the things that I'm lacking is because I don't just as second nature put things into perspective, and that is a problem because without perspective, we cannot convey depth in our art, or the illusion of depth in our art. So it's something that you really want to think about. If you're finding it hard to consistently make a face of one character look the same regardless of the angle, you're struggling with form and you're also struggling with perspective. If you don't know how to properly shade, or you don't know what shading looks like on a specific kind of body part, then you are also lacking that particular skill. So think about the fundamentals that you have to know, and I think the hard part about this also, if I don't go on too much of a tangent here, is that you can understand the concept of something, but that doesn't mean that you know how to implement it. And what I mean by that is, just because you understand how perspective works doesn't mean that you're properly implementing it in every single one of your drawings. So that's something to keep in mind. So without me going off the rails, let's go to the next point. This next point is going to be pretty quick, but it's visual storytelling. So for me, there was a lot that I really am lacking in this category. Like, I don't necessarily understand which angles I need to kind of use, which camera angles I should use for particular moods. Like, if somebody's feeling sad, is it better to do an anti-view or a bird's eye view? If somebody, I do know this one, if somebody is supposed to be more imposing than another person, then you put them in anti-view so that you're looking up. The camera's looking up at them, so that makes them look more imposing. But specific things I just don't quite understand. So, like, for instance, if in your brain you're thinking, hey, there's 3 characters and they're talking to one another versus 3 characters and they're fighting, and in your brain you can't come up with 2 very distinctive camera angles for each one right off the top of your head, you're probably lacking a little bit of this category as well. And this is something that really slowed me down in my thumbnailing process in particular. It probably took me 2 to 3 times longer to create the thumbnails than I probably would have wanted. So it took me about, probably 20 days to complete thumbnails. If I could have kind of pushed that down to maybe 6-7 days a week, then I would have had much more time to do my pencils and my inks, and I would have been able to put out a cleaner product at the end. So that's something you might want to think about as well. So writing. So this is something that I'm probably not going to talk about too much, just because it's a pretty quick point. If you struggle as a writer with page limits, like if somebody says you have 10 pages to tell a complete story, and you go ahead and you're like, oh yeah, and you create a story from start to finish, and then you try to thumbnail it and it's like 15 pages or 20 pages or something like that, you're probably struggling with the same kind of thing I am, which is, how do you convey a story as quickly as possible? So even though I am going to add on to this story probably 5 to 10 pages, I really shouldn't have to do that. And the reason is because I'm lacking a few different things. I'm lacking confidence, I'm lacking creativity, and I'm lacking the experience. So the reason why I think confidence is the first thing that I'm lacking is because a lot of the time I get stuck in this process where I over-explain things, not because I don't think my audience is smart enough, but I'm more so over-explaining because I think I'm not being clear enough. So that's one thing. Creativity, you can tell when you're lacking creativity because it's taking you 6-7 sentences to describe something, or to convey a particular kind of thing that's supposed to be happening within your story, when in reality it could probably only take you 1 sentence. Or you're kind of lacking in the department of how do you show something and not tell it, and that's kind of where I feel I'm lacking right now in both of those things, actually. And then finally, experience. All of this comes down to practice, right? You don't really know what you're lacking or how to improve on something without actually creating products that are finished. So the one thing I will say about this though is just fail, right? It's fine. Just because I'm saying all these things about my story doesn't mean I'm not happy with the way that it came out. I am, but I failed in specific parts of it, and that's okay. That's a good thing. That means I have something to learn from. So don't be afraid to fail, everybody. All right. Number 5. So number 5, preparation is key. So this story would not have been half as good without the preparation that I put in beforehand. So some of the preparation I'm talking about, I actually did a video on all of this, but it's like character design sheets, concept sheets, animal prop designs, environmental designs, all the design parts apparently, all of your writing, character development, things of that nature, that your thumbnailing is part of the preparation period. Without doing all of those things, you're going to get caught in this situation in which, hey man, I have this page that I need to draw out, and I don't really know what I wanted for each one of these panels, so I'm just kind of wing it, and then it comes out kind of wonky looking. And in fact, like, I would say that this comic, it took me about half the time as my previous comic did, and this comic was 30 pages and that one was 10. So the difference there was the fact that I really prepared for this one. So there's a lot of things when you prepare that you don't have to necessarily think about anymore. And those things are, hey, which side was his watch on? Which side was the book on? Which side is the staff on, right? All of those things are already in your design. You look back at them and it takes you 2 seconds to look back and draw, and you're good to go, right? So those are some of the things that I think were really helpful for me, but I could still do a better job of moving forward, which is the preparation. All right, now to my final point. All right, number 7, don't give up. All right, so bear with me here, because this is gonna be my attempt at being inspirational. So here we go. Even though there were some minor errors with my comic when I uploaded it for the competition, I was still very proud of my effort, right? When I was about 5 to 6 days away from deadline, I had about 18 pages left to complete, and that is not me misspeaking. I had about 18 pages. I almost threw in the towel because I was like, oh man, it's too much. But I pushed through it, and even though it meant staying up even later and working on it even earlier during the day, all of that was to say that I didn't give up on the dream, right? And I don't want you to give up on your dreams either. I want to read your awesome comics when they come out. I want to be able to give you feedback, and I want to support you guys just the way that you've supported me. That doesn't happen if you throw in the towel. Believe enough in yourself to push through the obstacles that block your path. Care enough about yourself to chase your dream. Even if you fail, it's always worth giving yourself a legitimate chance to accomplish your goals. And this has to do with not just art, but everything in life. There's something in life that you really want to accomplish. Don't let anybody or anything block you in trying to get to that goal. All right. So that's enough of me trying to be inspirational and failing. I do hope that you enjoyed the video. I will be going back to my regularly scheduled posting every Saturday. And I'm also going to work back into doing, live streams and things like that on Wednesdays. Once I get settled into this next project that I'm going to be working on, which I'm not 100% sure if it's going to be the next part of this one shot or if I'm going to go back to working on my webcomic Steam, I'll update you on that as well, just in case you want to kind of follow the path of the journey along the way. Next week, I did want to announce I'm going to be doing a video recommended by a commenter. It will be, let me get ready for this. I'm about to mispronounce this so badly, so don't judge me. It's going to be about Hishoten Ketsu. Okay, that was my attempt, which I obviously didn't know about. It's a different structure to creating stories. And I'm going to do a lot of research on it, and I'm going to present it in the best way I possibly can. So, I look forward to seeing you then. I'm Mangaka Mike, and I'm out.